Hey guys, it's John. Welcome back to the channel. Today is October 4th that this video will be coming out. It's a Saturday. And I decided I would try Inktober. So I'm following the standard Inktober list that you get from their website. But I decided I would add a little twist. So October is the month that my fiance's mother passed away. And she was obsessed with cows. My fiance Hillary grew up on a cattle farm. They raised Angus cattle, and her mom was just in love with all things cow. And so we've got a ton of cow stuff. So I figured it would be fun if I did the Inktober challenge with making every day into some kind of cow. So our first day is Mustache. Kind of a boring start, but I just made a big old cow with a mustache. I know it gets more creative, I promise. But I had done this one in a couple clips, so you'll see I'm doing the cow now, and I thought just a cow with a mustache was a little too boring, so I'll come back in a little bit and I'll add some details to make it, slightly more interesting drawing than just a mustache drawn on top of a normal cow. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of Inktober, it's very similar to the challenge I just finished on in September, where you make a drawing every day for the entire month. But the stipulation for Inktober is that they're all ink drawings. So I'm just using my pen, and they allow in the challenge rules that you have some pencil underneath. And so I'm using a red pencil underneath just because I think it looks nice. So you see here I'm adding in, I decided I would give this guy some some hair care products. So I put a little stash wax in his hand. But yeah, this is the first day. I'll let it finish out, and then I'll talk to you about day 2. So here we go on day number 2. The prompt for day 2 is weave. And so, when I think about weave, I'm thinking about a seamstress, or what else weaves? I think maybe weaving a web. And so that's kind of what I went with. I thought that making some kind of spider would be cool. And while I was looking through at different breeds of cattle, I saw a Highland cow, and it being so furry, I thought would lead nicely into making like a tarantula. So that's what I did. I did kind of a Highland cattle tarantula hybrid. So you'll see me start working on my pens here. And that's basically all I did. I just, tried to make him look as interesting as possible. I think it turned out really nicely. I forgot to draw in the horns initially, but I'm going to add those in a minute, I promise. I'm going through here and adding some fuzzy details to the legs. I drew the first 2 kind of too smooth, and since I want it to look like a tarantula, or at least to give off that vibe, I made all of his legs a lot hairier than the first 2. Here you see me adding the horns in. I realized that I had forgotten them. only having a pen to make a fully rendered drawing, it's very important that you preserve some whites, because you can only go darker. You can't make anything lighter without the use of a white pen, which actually I end up using later, so I kind of cheated. But it is what it is. This is not like that strict of a challenge. But it's important that you preserve some of your highlights, and you have to kind of sneak up on your dark areas, because that contrast is the only way that you're really going to get an interesting composition. And so I'm making sure to, when I'm drawing these with pencil, plan ahead so that I can think about what's going to be dark and what's going to be light and how to make things stand out from one another. Moving on to day number 3. I didn't write the subject or the day's word yet, so I don't remember what it is. I think it's crown. Let me check my book. Yeah, day 3 is crown. And so I really think if you've ever been to like a petting zoo, maybe you've seen what's called a Watusi. Well, there's a couple different breeds of Watusi. They're the ones with the giant horns. But there is a breed of Watusi who Ankole, I don't know how exactly you pronounce it, but their horns, instead of being giant, directly sideways out of their head, these guys kind of are up in the air. And I thought it would make for an interesting drawing on the day that is crown to make kind of an intricate crown out of this. These are some of those like sacred cattle that you find in India. I'm not exactly sure what they're native to, but I decided I would use this guy being as a sacred cattle. I think a crown is very fitting on something like that. And so initially I was just going to draw this, but that's not really interesting, and you can't really tell exactly that crown is the vibe that we're going for. And so once I get this in here, I'll be adding some more details to his horns so that we can tell that it actually is a crown. I think it's about this point that I realize I'm not super happy with it so far. And you'll see me start to add my little crown details to his horns in a second. Yeah, here we go. So I thought it would just be interesting to hang, some jewelry from his horns to make them a little more fancy. I guess fancy is what I'm thinking about. Just make them more interesting, make it stand out, make it seem more regal for, the theme of crown. Still seemed kind of empty, so I'm going to actually add kind of like a sun in here between his horns. It kind of reminds me of some of the depictions of Hellboy in the comic books, like when his horns grow all the way and he's like demon god king lord whatever. I didn't actually read the comics, I'm sorry, but he's got that sun that's suspended between his horns. I thought that was kind of a cool look, so I figured I'd add that in here. And here I go adding in the subject for the day. and that's the breed of cattle. And I think that about does it. So we'll jump on to the next day here. And day 4, final one for this week. My subject word is murky. Now, when I think murky, I'm thinking like a swamp, and a species of cattle that spends a lot of time in swamps is African water buffalo, or most water buffalo. That's why they call them water buffalo. So I thought it would be cool if I had one that was like hanging out in a swamp, with like mosses and grass and stuff hanging from his horns, and he's submerged in the water. So I thought that would be really interesting. And so that's kind of what I chose to do here. This is more realistic. It's less, high effort or strange, but I think that it fits the theme nicely. I have done a few of these ahead of time. It's not, I'm not going to lie to you. So some of the ones in the next week get a little more fantastical than this. They're a little weirder, but I think that that's cool. I like that there's some variation among all my drawings here. I don't want them all to be, just a picture of a cow. I'd like them to be interesting, and to fit some of the themes, I had to get a little creative. So water buffalo are black, which is unfortunate for my sake because I've got to draw in all of that and try to keep it detailed somehow. But it is what it is. I think it turned out just fine. But like I said, I've got some mosses and grasses hanging from his horns, hanging out of his mouth. Just, trying to make it interesting. But that about does it for this week. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll flip through each of the pages in a little video so you can see what I've done so far. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. If you did enjoy, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified whenever I upload, share with your friends, leave comments, all the YouTube stuff. It's helping a lot with engagement. I really appreciate all the new subscribers I've gotten recently. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.